will you give me the drink? Will you give me the drink? And the Samaritan woman said to him, you're a Jew. I'm a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink? Now let's read this scenario really quickly together. Samaritans and Jews don't get along, as we discussed. They have a major theological issue between the two of them. They have major historical grievances. And Jews look down upon Samaritans. They don't treat them well. They're prejudiced against them. They do not like them. And men and women outside of like close friends and family didn't interact. There were even these things called bleeding head Pharisees, where there would be these Pharisees who would rather run into a wall and get a cut on their head than look at a woman, much less speak to her. In those days, there was a prayer that said, thank God that I was not created as a woman. And here we have a Samaritan woman who's having an encounter with a Jewish man, and you know she's had encounters before. You know she's had encounters with other Jewish people who didn't treat her right. You know she knows how Jewish men feel about Samaritan women. And so she gets a little irritated at the situation, and you can hear it in her voice and in the tone, can't you? Hey, how is it that you, a Jewish person, you people who don't like people like me, how is it that you, a man, the men who hurt me in my past, how is it that you are going to ask me for anything? Where do you get off? How dare you? Because she's asking the wrong question. She's getting so angry because she thinks she knows who she's talking to. She has it pegged. She thinks she knows who just asked her for water. This is just another prejudiced Jewish man. That's exactly who he is. He's just going to treat me badly. He feels entitled. That's who he is. And when we don't know who we're talking to, we ask the wrong questions. She didn't ask the right question. She didn't say, who are you? She didn't say, where do you come from? She just assumed that she knew. And if you think you know who God is, then you will start to ask the wrong questions.
Yeah.
Because he's bigger than you think. He's more loving than you think. He's more incredible than you think. He's more wild than you think. He's more attainable than you think. It will take our entire lifetime and all of eternity to even begin to know him. We cannot peg God or put him in a box or circle him around with our theology and say this is who he is. No, we have to ask the right questions. So Jesus is so sweet. He's so incredibly kind. He doesn't answer her pain. He doesn't engage her on her assumptions of prejudice or hate. He doesn't do any of that. He answers it this way. Isn't it so kind that God doesn't always answer the question that we ask, but he tells us the question that we should be asking? He says this, he says, if you knew, because obviously you don't, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that asked you for a drink, you would have asked him and he would have given you living water. Wow! That's incredible! That's unbelievable! I mean, he gives her the whole picture. He says, hey, if you knew, ask me. If you were aware, ask me. woman. So she doesn't even ask the obvious question, because the obvious question here, guys, is what is living water?
Yeah.
You may not believe it exists, you may not want it, but if somebody offers you something that you have never heard of before, like please at least ask what it is, right? Let's find out. What are we dealing with here? What is this living water? Do I want it? How much does it cost? Like there's some questions to ask. She doesn't ask any of this. Instead she says this, "Sir, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where can you get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank from it himself, as did also his sons and his livestock?" This lady is not having it. She's like, who do you think you are? I thought you were just an arrogant, prejudiced Jewish man, but now I think you're crazy. Because didn't you just a minute ago ask me for a drink? And now you're offering me something? How are you going to get that? How's that going to work? What's the 5-step plan? Tell me how we're going to get here from there. And so many times we do the same thing. We hear of a promise of God, and our only question is how, instead of what, instead of leaning into who He is. And what I've found is that God is always going to tell you a lot more about where He's taking you than how He's going to get you there.
Yeah.
When you have a vision for your future, don't get discouraged that you don't know all of the steps along the path. Just take the first step. Just take the first step. But this lady, she is not having it. She is completely done. She's going, I don't understand what you're talking about. But once again, Jesus is so kind to us, isn't He? He doesn't answer the question she asks. He doesn't tell her how. Sometimes we do the same thing, right? How are you going to save my family, God? How are you going to use me on this campus? How are you going to turn things around for me with my friends? How are you going to make it possible for me to raise my support? How are you going to open the door for that country that I feel called to? How are you going to do it? And yet Jesus doesn't answer the how. Instead, He answers the question she should have asked in the first place, which was, what is living water? And He says this. He says, hey, everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again. We're talking about the water in the well. But whoever drinks the water I give to them, ask me, go ahead and ask me. Whoever drinks this water that I give to them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life. And Jesus is saying to her, hey, I can do more for you than you think. Hey, the boundaries that you set on your life, they don't apply when I'm involved. Hey, the limitations that you've seen because of what you've seen in your family and what you've seen in your neighborhood and what you've seen in your culture, they don't exist for me. See, I am the God of exceedingly abundantly above. I am the God who creates something out of nothing. I am the God who feeds with manna in the wilderness. I am the God of the virgin birth. I am the God of all of the miracles. That is who I am. Am I greater than Jacob? I created Jacob. Am I greater than this well? I created the water that's at the bottom of this well. I am God, and I am bigger than you think.
Yeah.
And that's what He's saying. He's saying, stop putting limitations on me and stop putting limitations on yourself. Well, the woman at this point, I think, just gives up. You know how when you're having a conversation with somebody and you're like, fine, whatever, good, let's go. I love Starbucks, of course, it's great. She kind of does the equivalent. I don't know if she was calling his bluff, or if she just was really tired of the conversation because she kind of wanted to be alone. And here she is, she's having this conversation, she doesn't have her water yet, like, okay. But maybe there was a little part of her that thought to herself, wait a minute, what if he has what he says he has? Then I wouldn't have to come here every day and risk seeing people. What if he has what he says he has? That I could hide a little better. And so she says to him, she says, hey, look, why don't you just go ahead and give me this water so that I won't get thirsty, and so I don't have to keep coming here to draw water. She gives up. And then Jesus takes this conversation in a totally different direction. I mean, he throws a total left turn again, and he says to her, he says, go call your husband and come back. Okay. The woman replies, I have no husband. Now, just so you were wondering, if you were thinking about it, this is where a conversation is supposed to end. Okay? This is what we call a conversation ender. Go get your husband. I don't have a husband. Okay, thank you. I'm going to have a great day. All right? But everything she's done has been to try to get the conversation. Jesus came through time and space for you. He is going to be relentless in his pursuit of you every day of your life until you go to the grave. You can run from him. You can jump from him. You can try to dodge him. You can try to end the conversation. But that is just who Jesus is. He's relentless in his pursuit of this woman. She keeps on trying to shut him down, and she gets to the money line. I have no husband, thinking that surely now he's going to leave her alone. But Jesus, he just keeps going, revealing himself to her bit by bit. He says, you know what? You're right. You were right when you said you have no husband, because you've had 5 husbands. And the man that you're living with right now, he's not your husband, honey. No, he's not. So you were right. You were honest when you said that. Isn't it funny how he congratulates her for her honesty, even though it's obvious that she was trying to hide from him? She didn't say, I have no husband in order to reveal herself. She said, I have no husband in order to hide herself. And yet Jesus turns around and he says, you know what? I hear the pain in what you didn't say. You're right. You don't have a husband because 5 times you've been rejected. 5 times you've been publicly humiliated. 5 times you've been divorced by a system that gives all of the power to a man to be able to divorce you for any reason he wants, including burning dinner, which can be real to be a problem for me. Any reason will do. This woman had endured such incredible rejection, and now she was risking her life to live with a man who was not her husband so that she could have shelter and just a little bit of security. Jesus says, hey, I know you don't know who I am, but I know who you are. I know exactly who you are. I know the parts of you that you're ashamed of. I know why you showed up here and you're hiding. I know why you put on that front. I know why you wear those clothes. I know why you can't sleep at night. I know what you think about in your darkest times. I know you. He gets so up close and personal with this woman. And she does what we all do when confronted with something that's incredibly convicting and personally challenging. She brings up a huge theological debate in order to distract. And she says, I can see that you're a prophet. Well, let me just throw down the biggest theological issue of the day, and then you're going to forget all about this husband thing. And I'm going to be able to just waltz off the scene with my water and escape the moment where I come face to face with the reality of who I am. So she tells him, she says, hey, look, where are we supposed to worship? She says, my ancestors worshipped on this mountain, but you Jews claim that the place where we must worship is in Jerusalem. She brings up the biggest divide that she can think of between herself and this man that she is talking to. You know, I have found that the most argumentative people are usually the ones who are hiding the most pain and who are just hiding the most. The ones who want to go after you about every little issue, about every little thing, who really want to dissect all of your theology to make sure that it lives up to their standards. So many times they're doing it just because they want to deflect, because they're hurting so much on the inside. Because it's what we all do. We're confronted with ourselves. So we want to redirect the attention to something out here. Something different. Something that's not me. But once again, it's the wrong question. It's just the wrong question. See, the question isn't this mountain or that. It's how does God want to be worshipped? So we can't just set up these false dichotomies and say, is it this way of doing things or that way? Now, God, you pick. No, that's not who God is. We don't get to box him in by our own reasoning. Instead, we have to find out what he wants us to do, but more importantly, who he wants us to be. So Jesus responds once again to the question that she should have asked. Woman, Jesus replied, believe me, a time is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You Samaritans worship what you don't know. We worship what we do know, for salvation is from the Jews. Yet the time is coming and has now come when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. See, with every reply, Jesus is begging her to understand. He's telling her there is more. There's more. There's more than the tradition you've been taught. There's more than the way that you do it. There's more than your culture. There's more than your theological debate. There's more than your argument. And he redirects her from conflict to devotion. He redirects her from figuring out that big picture question to saying, hey, I want you to worship me. I want you to be a true believer. Do you worship me in spirit and truth? Because the thing is that that's not on the outside, that's on the inside. That's something that only you know.
Yeah.
He's not saying one side or the other. He's saying, I want more from both of you. From both of you. I want you both to give me more, because there is more. Jesus is so kind to her, but she does, once again, what we all do when that conversation reaches the awkward point of decision, right? You know, like when you have to actually decide whether your relationship is official or not. That awkward point of decision, where you have to actually decide if you're all in or not. That awkward point of decision, where you have to decide whether or not to act on the truth that you've been presented. That awkward moment of decision, where the rubber meets the road and it's no longer theoretical, it's right now and it's in your face. She does what we all tend to do. She punts. And she punts hard. She punts really far, too. I mean, she doesn't do like the typical, let me just pray about it for a couple more days. You know, I really need to give this just a little bit more thought. Or, you know, I have a couple more people I want to run this by. She doesn't do that. She says, hey, when Messiah comes, which good for me, I don't know when that's going to be, but I bet it's far, far, far away. When Messiah comes, he'll explain all of this to me. Once again, conversation over. When Messiah comes, see, she's just asking for a little bit more information.
You know, I don't have all of the information yet. I mean, this is really a compelling argument. I mean, I feel in my heart that it's true and all of that. You've given me this. I mean, you knew who I was. Wow, that was unbelievable. Don't know how you did that. I'm going to have to talk to the local gossip, see if they let you in. But whatever, you had a great answer to the theological question. Threw that back in my face, was not seeing that, all of that. But now I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to plead not enough information. They say that your generation is the most over-informed and undereducated generation that we've had. Because every bit of information that is known to mankind is at your fingertips. And mine too. And yet, because there's so much information, we live in constant decision paralysis, and we keep punting. I'll make the decision next week. I'll make the decision next year. Well, I just need to talk to one more person. I just need a little bit more information. Sometimes you don't need more information. Sometimes you don't need another prayer service. Sometimes you don't need another counseling session. Sometimes you just need to start walking in the truth that you've already been given, taking the next step and moving forward and going somewhere, trusting God that he will redirect you if he wants you to go somewhere else. But this is what's so beautiful. Of all of the ways that she could have punted, God just sets her up. Because she says, and y'all can start playing the piano and making this next part sound really good. God totally sets her up. The question she asked was, hey, look, when Messiah comes, he'll answer all my questions. He'll lead us in all truth. He'll tell us all of those things. And Jesus turns to her and he says, I am he. It's me. Remember that question you were supposed to ask at the beginning? Remember that question I've been hinting at from the very beginning? If you knew who you were talking to, ask me. If you knew what he could give you, ask me. I can give living water, ask me who I am. The answer to that question is I am the one who you're looking for. I am the one who has all the answers. I am he. I am the Messiah. I am it. You don't have to go any further. You don't have to get any more information. I am the one. You know, Jesus didn't go around while he was on earth just proclaiming that he was the Messiah. He didn't. He told a lot of parables. He told a lot of stories. He wrapped so much of what he had to say in mystery. But here we see in this conversation with this broken woman, in this broken place, one of the most clear revelations of who Jesus is ever. Because Jesus tends to reveal himself to the broken. He says, I am he. If this had been a movie, this would have been the mic drop moment. I mean, they would have panned out. It would have been a huge drone shot. The music would have swelled. It would have been incredible. But instead, right at this moment, Jesus' disciples return. really bad timing, guys, right? I mean, you've been gone, and now you're back. And they see him talking to a Samaritan woman. And I can just imagine they're going, man, our plan did not work. He found one, you know? She runs away. But there's a detail there that's so beautiful. She leaves her jug. She goes back to the town and she leaves her jug. See, she had carried some things to that well. She had carried an identity. She had carried a way of seeing God. She had carried a way of seeing herself. She had carried a task that she thought was going to define her day. She had carried her jug to the well. But after she met Jesus, she left her jug there because it just didn't seem to be that important anymore. And she runs back to her town. You know, the town she was trying to avoid. You know, the town that she felt embarrassed in front of. You know, the town that she felt ostracized from. And she runs back to her town and she says, hey, you've got to come meet this man who told me exactly who I am and everything that I have done. Suddenly her past wasn't something to run from. It wasn't something to be ashamed of. It was a testimony. It was a platform for her to proclaim a hope that was so big that she couldn't hold it on the inside, and she had to tell everybody, even the everybody she didn't like. See, that's what happens when we come face to face with the soul love of God. The soul love of God that sees us. Because that's what Jesus did. He saw her. And you know what? He sees you too. And he'll see you tomorrow and next week. And when you go through that crisis when you're 36 and you're pregnant with your 4th child, he'll see you. He saw her. Eli started yesterday or ended the sermon. I wrote down a quote. He said, we have to follow his pattern in his heart. You want to know the pattern in the heart of Jesus? See people. Really see them. Don't see them as projects or potential conversions. See them. See them right where they are, sitting at the wells, trying to be alone because they're afraid and they're hurt and they've been let down by society. See people the way that Jesus saw people. He saw her and then he valued her. He valued her. He asked her for a drink. He recognized that she had something to give. He engaged her. One of the students from Louisiana gifted me with her story. She told me her story, which is the greatest gift we have, right? And she said the way she got in Chi Alpha is somebody asked her to kick around a soccer ball. She was just walking through her college, and somebody invited her to a soccer game. She's in Chi Alpha because somebody saw her and somebody valued her. Somebody said, hey, come sit with me. Come be a part of my group. You're valuable. But see, this is the thing about Jesus. She didn't even understand how much she had been valued. Because he hadn't just come from Judea that day. He had come from the thrones of heaven into earth just so that he could rescue her. And if you doubt your value, just remember that he did the same thing for you. And if you doubt the value of the person sitting next to you because they're annoying, just remember that Jesus did the same thing for them. See, Jesus sees, Jesus values, so love sees, so love values, so love listens. Jesus spent a long time listening to this woman. He spent a long time listening to this woman basically tell him who he was. We have to be willing to listen. But do you know that God doesn't get tired of listening to you either? I was praying the other day, and I was like, God, I feel like by now I should have it more together. Aren't you tired of hearing this issue from me? You know, I could just feel the Holy Spirit go, no, I really like you. You were messed up when I got you. I'm cleaning you up. We're moving forward. But you're still my girl. You're still every bit as much my girl now as you were then. See, so love listens. So love knows. You don't have to hide. Hey, he's not impressed. He knows. Hey, you don't have to earn it. He knows. He knows who you are. Hey, you don't have to be ashamed. You don't have to hide that thing. You know that thing, that thing. You don't have to hide it because he knows. So love knows, and so love satisfies. Satisfies us so much that we're willing to leave behind the things that 5 minutes ago seemed so important. That we're willing to leave behind the relationships that seemed so important. That we're willing to leave behind the careers that seemed so important. That we're willing to leave behind the tendencies and the brokenness and the difficulty that 5 minutes ago seemed so important. Satisfies like nothing else. But what I love is that so love also sins. Because Jesus went with her. Even though he stayed at the well, he went with her because he was her story. See, he had totally gotten above the story that any other man had written for her in her life. Now she was the lady who had met Jesus. Now she was the lady who preached the gospel to the town for the first time. Now she was the lady who brought them to meet Messiah. That's who she was. And that's what Jesus does. He goes beyond our limitations. He breaks through what we think is possible. He takes us to places that our background and our history and our parents said just weren't even available to us. So love sins. Will you stand with me? We're just going to worship for a moment. See, so love encounters changes from the inside out. There where religion and grace collide. Jesus stopped at a place that proved that centuries of religion and trying to do things the right way and trying to earn it did not work. And instead, he gave his love. And just for a moment, see, that's my story. I think it might be yours too. When I was 20 years old, I found myself sitting in incredible anxiety and depression on a dorm room bed, Southern Methodist University, really close to here. I was crying again. I was hurting again. I was despondent again. See, I grew up in the perfect family. I promise. I'm not being sarcastic. There's no but here. They were perfect. They were amazing. My parents loved Jesus like I've never seen two people love Jesus the way they love Jesus. I met Jesus when I was 3 years old for real. I can remember the moment in an old church up in Washington. Got baptized in the Holy Spirit when I was 6. I was in full-time ministry almost my entire life. And I loved Jesus with all of my heart. I was a good kid. I mean, I didn't even chew gum in church. And yet somewhere along the way, I bought into the lie that now I had to earn his approval. That he looked at me and he was disgusted with all the issues that I had. That he was unhappy. That he was angry. So I started trying to work harder. And y'all, I did a great job. I mean, I was a straight A student. I was dating like the evangelist of the year in our area. I mean, I was doing awesome. And I was dying on the inside. And back then, you didn't say the word depression. Back then, you didn't talk about those things. You just hit them really, really down deep. I was so broken, and I was so lonely, and I was so angry, and there was so much pain on the inside. And I finally got to a moment where, once again, I was crying and sitting on my bed, and I was talking to God, and I said, God, I can't do it anymore. I just can't. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And this image flashed in my mind of this little kitty cat hanging on to the end of a rope. Have you ever seen that? It's a common meme, and it usually says, I'm just hanging in there, and it's always on sarcastic secretaries' desks right next to the sign that says, today's not your day, tomorrow's not looking good either. So this image flashes into my mind of just holding on to the end, right? To the end of the rope. And can I be real? I got mad. It's like, yeah, God, that's exactly how I feel. Thank you so much for the visual. Yeah, that's it. I'm trying to tell you, I can't hold on anymore. And this is what God spoke to my heart. I never asked you to. I asked you to let go and let me love you. And that moment changed everything for me. Because I let go. And I said, you can love me in spite of my issues. And you can love me in spite of my deficiencies. And you can love me right where I am. And I'm just going to admit that I can't earn this. I can't be good enough for this. I can't make you proud enough for me. I'm just going to have to accept that you love me for some reason that I don't even understand. And it changed everything. It was like concrete filled up the holes in my chest. Yeah, have I struggled since then? Of course I have. Has it been perfect? No. But I've never gone back to that moment again because there was something inside of me that said, God sees me and his soul love is big enough for me. What about you? Have you let him love you just the way you are? Not the way you show to your group leader, not the way you show to your campus pastor, not the way that you talk about or do on your social media with that adorable filter, please show it to me later. How you really are. Have you let him love you? Because until you do, the things that you want to change the most won't change. Can we pray? God, I just thank you so much for who you are. God, I thank you that you're bigger than what we think. God, I thank you that you still show up in broken places to broken people. God, I thank you that you still answer questions that we didn't even know to ask. God, I thank you that you still see us and that you love us and that you rescue us. God, I pray that right now in this moment, in this room, that we would put aside our preconceptions of who you are, that we would put aside the limitations of what you can do, that we would put aside who we think we're supposed to be, and that instead we would just simply ask you, just like the woman at the well, reveal yourself to us again. Show us who you are. Right now we're just going to sing and we're going to worship. But if that's you, you don't have to get out of your seat. You don't have to come down. You don't have to do anything like that. As we worship, just cry out to him because he sees you and he loves you and he cares for you. so much more than you could have ever imagined. Let's worship.